Alright guys, what's up? It's Jack and welcome back to another video, and finally I'm going to be giving my first impressions on Splitgate 2. I've put in I don't know, at least 3 or 4 hours into the game so far and counting. So instead of going all over the place, which I did in the first 2 takes of this, I'm going to take a little bit more of a strategic approach when giving the first impressions of this game. So let's start out with the first thing, which is what you hear and see. So let's start with what you hear. I really like the sound of this game. I really like the music, the menu music. It kind of reminds me of that whole, I don't know, almost like Tron-ish type of Daft Punk sort of flavor in its own way. And of course, when you're talking about gameplay, the guns sound really punchy. The footsteps are sounding exactly where they should be, including if someone's coming towards you when they're about to enter through a portal, which is obviously very important. So they can't like completely blindside you. So there's like a certain level of awareness or whatnot when coming through that. So which is great, you know. So from everything from where the guns are firing and when you're being shot at and all that kind of stuff, you name it, the sounds are actually really good. I remember people saying that the sounds were a bit off, you know, in the alpha or whatnot, and I think we're in a pretty good spot right here. I'm pretty sure when you go into the nitty gritty, when you go into like being really, really picky about certain things, I'm sure some people will say, well, maybe the footsteps could be just a tad bit quieter and things just a tad bit quieter, but for the most part, everything I think needs to be exactly where it should be. This is a very high action type of game where there's a lot of stuff going on, and quite frankly, the more you're aware of all the different things going around you, the more potentially you can have a better type of game sense. And so far, from everything that I've been hearing so far with my ears, the game seems to be doing a really great job at that. So in terms of situational awareness, everything that you could possibly need is here, and it seems to be in a good spot so far from everything that I am experiencing so far. All right, next up to what we see now. Obviously, the colors are very vibrant. It's very easy to be able to see enemies. I really like the neon type of style of this type of game. Again, it kind of goes to that Tron type of feel, but yet in its own way, and I really, really dig that personally. And from an arena shooter that kind of takes from all these different types of games, I think it fits in very well. So when you put in the music, obviously the sounds of the game in terms of gameplay, I think, like I just mentioned, are where it should be, but when you're talking about the music and then you're talking about the visuals, I think they go hand in hand very, very well. The maps are very vibrant, they're very colorful, you don't have trouble seeing enemies. And yeah, I would say in that aspect, I think we're in a pretty good spot as well. All right, next up, let's talk about the map design. I think the map design in this game, in terms of what I played in the arena modes, is absolutely terrific. Ozone, I've only played on this map here, which is probably what you're seeing in the gameplay. Ozone, I've only played on maybe once or twice, and I absolutely love this map. I dig this map. And as a matter of fact, I love and dig every single map that I've played on, which is insane to think about, because like this is, well, first of all, we're in beta, or should I say, you know, a soft launch of the game, since beta goes all the way to launch. But this game, whether you like to admit it or not, is still in its infant stages. And one thing I have to say is that so far, from every map that I've played on in arena, the devs really hit it home with these maps. You know, you've got, you know, they kind of give me a combination feel of what classic COD maps feel like, as well as what Halo maps feel like, as well as what some of your old school maps such as a Quake or an Unreal Tournament feel like. It's literally like a combination of all those things, which makes sense because, quite frankly, this game has little titty bits of every single one of those games in the mix when it comes to gameplay. So I really like and dig the map design so far. Game modes, I really like how they took a different kind of approach to the game modes. Like all the game modes are round based so far from what I've seen, at least, you know, like a team deathmatch and stuff like that. And like, I never thought I'd say this, but I think it's actually very interesting that it's kind of round based. And quite frankly, the games actually last a pretty long time from start to finish, despite the fact that they're round based. And I really like how the last round in team deathmatch is kind of like a search and destroy. You only have one life, and you basically, you know, have to, you know, it kind of, in order to win that round, you kind of have to play, you know, a little bit more strategic and passive or whatnot, you know. So I think that's a really interesting twist. It doesn't take away from what team deathmatch is, so I kind of appreciate that. But I really like the fact that that last round, if you're like at a tie to where you've won 2 rounds, the enemy team's won 2 rounds, and you've got a final round, and that it kind of goes into a one life type of, you know, no objective, you know, search and destroy type of thing. very, very interesting. And since it doesn't really last very long, it doesn't really take anything away from what the essence of a team deathmatch is. And it's a really good way to kind of break the tie, so to speak, if you think about it. And I think that's what the devs were thinking about. And I have to say that I'm not completely opposed to it. I can't wait personally to see a free-for-all in this game. That's something that I personally am waiting for. But in time, hopefully we'll see that. And speaking of team deathmatch, by the way, I think team deathmatch needs to be its own playlist. It is the most popular game mode in every single shooter out there, and therefore I think it needs, upon full release, to have its own playlist. Simple as that. And then obviously domination plays very well. You've got your hardpoint variation in this game, which I forget at the moment what it's called, that plays very well. You've got Firecracker, which is kind of like, it's kind of interesting. I haven't really paid attention too much to what Firecracker is, because when I played Firecracker on the map Stadium, which is a great map, which is, you know, a map that's come back from the first game, I was just kind of getting my feet wet and not giving a damn about the objectives and stuff like that. But I really like, and I also like the ball, to where you have to, you know, score 3 balls or whatever into the thing. It's kind of like Assault, but just kind of different for those of you that are familiar with Halo. So yeah, all the game modes so far seem to be hitting home pretty well. There's also a search and destroy type of mode, if I'm not mistaken, unless it was a mode that just went into the last round and it was kind of played like search and destroy. But anyway, all the modes are kind of fun variants of the traditional game modes that we know, which again fits into this game, in my opinion, perfectly, because again, this game is a hybrid type of shooter that has a little bit of different implementations. Now, let's get into the gameplay. Not the game modes, but the gameplay. Okay, so now obviously, you know, this game is a bit of Overwatch, it's a bit of Unreal Tournament, it's a bit of Quake, it's a bit of Halo, it's a bit of Call of Duty, it's a bit of Black Ops 3 Advanced Movement, it's a bit of an arcade shooter, an arena shooter, Halo with portals. You know what I mean? It's literally a hybrid shooter of 5 or 6 different types of games with portals and with certain abilities that you can have within your 3 heroes. And another thing I gotta say is that the guns in this game, granted, I haven't used every single one of them because I haven't unlocked every single one of them. I don't even know if they're fully unlockable as of right now, because it's either that or it takes forever to unlock things, but whatever. Every single gun that I've used for every single mode or whatnot, you know, because in SWAT you can use the precision weapons or whatnot. Every single weapon that I've used so far has been fun to use, and I can see myself like using them multiple times without, you know, I can literally, like, depending on my mood, I can grind a weapon and enjoy it, as opposed to, I don't like this weapon, I'm gonna put it down and I may not touch it. I may level it up, but then I may not touch it after that, right? I don't feel that way with this game. I feel that every single weapon not only has its place for its specific specialty in certain types of engagements. However, I also believe that a weapon can be, and again, no pun intended, this could be like a jack of all trades type of weapon if used and implemented correctly in the right scenario, in the right position, and catching people off guard, etc., etc. It's not like Halo, to where there are certain weapons that you just can't use at certain engagements. I feel, obviously, there are some better weapons used than others in certain engagements, obviously, which makes, you know, the difference in weapons viable, just like any other first-person shooter out there. But you can still map people with certain weapons, you know, across the map. You know, even if it's a pistol, you can still do it if you're precise enough and consistent enough, etc., etc. So there is that. So all the weapons are really fun to use, and they all have their place. And it's going to be very interesting to see how the competitive mode, whenever that releases at some point in the future, it's going to be very interesting in terms of what the default weapon is going to be, because I see the precision weapons very like Halo being used, like the carbine, for instance, or the burst fire weapons, because those are going to require more skill and more consistency, especially when it comes to certain type of range engagements, whether it's, you know, closer or farther away. I think it's going to widen the skill gap, especially if you're talking about a controller. But with that being said, I think that this game may be a little bit more suited towards PC because of all the different, you know, button combinations, stuff like that. And of course, you got your portals and stuff like that. But regardless of your playstyle, though, even though this game is, you know, it encourages you to move around, even if you want to be a more passive player, if you use your portals properly, or if you know, position yourself properly, you know, you won't be able to stay there forever. However, you can put yourself in a power position if you want to. As a matter of fact, you're able to do that more effectively than other first-person shooters out there because of the portals. So therefore, you can use the portals for passive reasons as well as offensive and defensive reasons. and objective based reasons, right? Depending on whatever game mode you play, as well as whatever map you're on and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure the devs thought about this a million times in terms of where they were going to put the walls, in terms of what the possibilities and combinations are with your portals, whether you're a beginner or advanced, because you don't want to be everywhere at once. However, this game with the portals, as well as the different movements with the slide, the advanced movement of the jetpacks or whatnot, that pretty much feel like Black Ops 3, but a little bit more on steroids, if you ask me. There has to be a limitation to it all. So with the combination of all the different ways that you can approach certain situations, there is actually a method to the madness, and there is a happy medium. Now, I obviously haven't figured things out, obviously, because I'm fairly new to Splitgate compared to other first-person shooters out there. I did play the first one for a good amount, but nothing compared to other main games out there back then. However, with that being said, this game is probably going to change that, because there is a skill gap. There's a ton of different ways to approach different situations. It's got a lot of the elements about other first-person shooters that I love all crammed into one shooter. And the fact that everybody's moving around, you've got very interesting objective-based game modes. You probably have more interesting things coming in the game in the near future, including weapons and stuff like that, that'll give the game a lot more meat on the bone, so to speak. Hopefully a progression system as well, which is something this game really, really needs, in my opinion, as well. You got to have something to grind for beyond just the battle pass. I'm sure the devs know this, and hopefully we'll get something interesting coming up soon. And the fact that this game already has a custom game browser, you've also got the fact that, for a beta, which is obviously a soft launch, for a beta, this game actually has a lot of content, and it's actually available to so many different consoles, including last gen. And on top of that, you got, again, your custom game browser, you got private matches, which is going to be very viable, whether you're talking about, just playing with your friends or content creators or streamers, playing with their community or with other content creators or streamers or whatever it is, the pro scene, you name it. It's there. It's not like you have to wait for all these things. Like the fact that you also have your map editor that is already there from the get-go in the game's infant stages is also incredible. I've seen little bits and pieces of what people are starting to create already, and people are grinding the hell out of creating something for the game already, which is great. These are different aspects that definitely would have helped Halo out when Halo Infinite released, but people had to wait so long for it, and guess what? We're getting it from the get-go in this game. And the fact that this game just offers so many different things and also has a skill gap to it, but the one thing, in my opinion, that this game has that I believe to this day, ever since I started playing games when I was like 7 years old, to this day at age 40, it has the most important element that every single game needs to have in there above all else, and that's the fun factor. The fun factor is there in this game, and now that it has it, it needs to keep it, and this game needs to evolve. However, it needs to evolve without sacrificing the foundation of what this game is. That is what needs to happen going forward. Now, obviously, I have my own ideas, especially as I get more and more familiar with the game in terms of suggestions and stuff like that. I know you guys are going to be very vocal in the comment section. I know you guys are going to be very vocal on social media and all that kind of stuff, but this game has all the potential to reach incredible heights. Now, the devs, we know that the devs are going to do that, because the CEO himself went to Twitter, or possibly the Discord or whatever it was, went on there with a camera in his face and apologized to everybody for having all these problems and the servers having to go down and all that kind of stuff, and reassuring us that we're going to get there, and at the same time all the stuff that you guys have gotten has not been lost, etc., etc. You don't see that kind of transparency nowadays. So I am more than willing to give the devs the benefit of the doubt because of that example alone. And on top of that, they've already kind of expressed that this is a game that was made for us, by us, if you think about it. So I have no doubt whatsoever in terms of the faith with them so far. But it's ultimately going to be, it takes two, right? It takes them and it also takes us. So it's going to be us deciding on how far this game actually goes and the potential it actually reaches. So if the devs do right by their part, if we do right by our part in the community, and if this game ends up, getting to a certain level of popularity to where the wheels can continue to move forward, then I think this game is going to be unique in and of itself. I think this game could even revolutionize the way we play first-person shooters, or any shooter for that matter, because of the things that you could do with the portals alone, because it increases the possibilities of what could happen, as well as the space that you can use in terms of where you can be at any given point in time in the map. You can't be everywhere all at once, but you can be a little bit more of a ghost, so to speak, especially if you're like a really well-skilled player and you got to carry a whole bunch of bad players. Guess what? You're actually able to do that to victory if you actually truly know what you're doing with every single mechanic, including the portals. And the portals is that extra bit of something that can help you get the win if you happen to be playing with a bunch of noobs on your team and everybody else on the other team has a certain level of an idea of what you're doing. I think potentially this arms the really good player as well. And at the same time, even for the players that are not as good, all they have to do is just start utilizing them, and then sooner or later they're going to understand and get to a point to where they not only have a certain level of understanding of how this thing works, but they're going to be implementing it, and then all of a sudden the game is going to be like nuts. You know, it's going to be controlled chaos, so to speak. It's not going to be chaos for the sake of chaos, but it's going to be controlled chaos, which is one of the reasons why there's not literally walls all over the place. I mean, granted, they're in a lot of places, but they're not like literally on every inch of the map, because you have to put limits somewhere and you have to limit the lines of sight and all that kind of stuff, or else everything becomes too random. And I think that's one of the reasons why the game is a 4v4 instead of a 6v6. If this was a 6v6, it would be nuts. But with that being said, guys, I want to know in the comment section so far, what are your impressions about Splitgate 2? Are you guys enjoying it? Are you not enjoying it? Is there something that you are requesting for it to be in the game? I know there's a lot of things that need to be ironed out so far in terms of the stages that we're at, but in terms of a first impressions basis, what do you guys think of the game so far? How does it feel to you? How does it sound? How does it look? You know, all the basic things that are absolute necessities for a first-person shooter in your eyes. What do you guys think so far in terms of a first impressions? I'd love to know down below, and I'm sure the devs would love to know as well. And with that being said, I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time to watch and or listen. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.